Hi, my name is Leslie Berger, and I would like to welcome you to this episode of Renew. Renew is a show about the College of Forest Resources at Mississippi State University. In this college, we work to support and enable the conservation, wise use, and management of our natural resources. Each show features a different unit within the College of Forest Resources, and today's unit will be the Department of Forestry. And joining me today are Dr. Eric McConnell and graduate student and extension professional, James Shannon. Thank you for joining me today.
Hi. Thank you, Leslie.
We were chatting before the show began that I actually, even though we work in the same building, we haven't had a chance to interact because of COVID.
Yes.
So I'm looking forward to hearing a little bit more about your program that you've been working on since you started at Mississippi State. So why don't you share that with James and me and everyone that's watching.
Well, thank you. I am an assistant professor of forest business in the Department of Forestry, and I started in August of 2020. And I have prior experience at other land-grant universities in the eastern U.S. Mm-hmm. And so current projects looking at harvesting economics, economic impacts and contributions of forestry and forest products around the United States.
Okay, some people may not recognize how important forestry is to the state of Mississippi. Can you explain just a little bit about that?
Yes, forestry is generally the number one or number two crop in the state. So it has a value at the farm gate of around $1 to $1.2 billion, depending upon the year. And so there's two components of that. There's the portion that the landowner receives for standing timber, and then there's the portion that the wood supply system, the loggers, the truckers, and the marketers, the wood dealers, they receive a portion, and it splits generally in the neighborhood of 50-50 of that $1.2 billion.
Yeah, that's a significant impact coming into the state.
Very.
So very important resource, and hence one of the reasons why we have a college that has that as one of its focuses. The show features other aspects of that as well, but certainly a very important commodity for the state of Mississippi.
Yes.
So James, I'm assuming that since you are here as Eric's graduate student, that you might be doing some graduate work related to forestry or forest economics. So why don't you explain a little bit about what you're doing?
My focus is the log trucking industry. I've got a background in transportation and also in agriculture, natural resources education. So log trucking was a perfect fit for that. And the overall trucking industry is facing issues with driver shortage, increasing liability insurance rates, kind of based on large verdicts that have happened, and also retaining the drivers that they hire. And the log trucking industry faces those similar challenges, but there's other risk involved associated with, we haul heavy loads that can increase risk of rollovers. There's a large expense if there is an accident. And also we haul on rural and state roads, which are increased risk associated with going through more intersections and school zones and those types of things. So it's important for us to look at the challenges associated with the log trucking industry and the logging industry, because if we don't address the issues they're facing, then it could affect the profits that the landowners and then the overall health of the industry.
Sure. They're a really important middleman that makes, you need that. The whole thing breaks down if you don't have those people in there. And sure, rising gas prices and all those things are just things that are hidden all inside of that issue. Eric, if you would, one of the things that I know that not everyone fully understands is kind of the aspect of timber harvest, and that's what James is talking about, sort of the back half, once you get everything loaded up and then moving it. You brought some pictures along with you, and they kind of show that process of timber harvest, and so if you would explain those pictures and then maybe speak to how the sustainability of that practice.
Sure. So this picture right here is a feller buncher and a loader being unloaded at a harvest site. And so this picture alone, when you count the harvesting equipment, the trucks, the trailer, and then the two guys being paid an hourly wage, when you look at their annual salary add it all up, that picture's about $1 million,
gosh.
roughly, right there. And then plus there's a little bit of a bulldozer on the side that I'm not counting. But right there, it's over $900,000 for sure.
It's a lot of investment.
Yes.
Okay, so here it looks like we've got a picture of people that are actually in the field removing trees.
Yes, this picture was taken at what we would call a wetter site, where water will tend to kind of stay higher in the soil table. And so you can see they have an extra set of tires on here. And then they also laid the stems down, so they've made a temporary logging road. In those wider tires, it's just like us walking in snowshoes versus wearing our regular boots. It helps us increase our surface area, and so we're not putting as much pressure on the ground. And then as they finish the trail, they will pick those stems up and they go to market.
Right, so it helps protect the soil
Exactly.
for future use of that land. It doesn't run off.
Yes, it all follows our best management practices that our forest certification systems require, which is maintaining the site for future productivity and harvests.
Okay. So what about this next site here, or clearly from a drone or something
Yes,
overhead?
yes, this was taken from a drone by a forester that I worked with, and it highlights everything going on at one time. And the use of these unmanned aerial vehicles has really increased the efficiency and the productivity of the harvesting forester, because now he can be working in one area and he can let the drone fly and check on something else. So we can't physically be in two places at once, but now we have a tool that will help us see two places at once.
I hadn't thought about that as an option
Yes.
for them. Okay, what about the last picture here?
This is a picture of a truck being loaded, and you can see underneath the back tires of the truck there is a platform scale. And so what we're doing here is wanting to make sure that we maximize the load so that we get the most on the truck that we legally can. We don't want to go over. And we want to get the wood delivered to market in a timely and safe fashion, as James said. We want to minimize that turnaround time so that we can get the loads out as efficiently as we can, because this industry lives on productivity, and that's turning these loads around.
Okay, so James, why are you looking at going back to school at this point in your life? You would be what some would consider a non-traditional graduate student. I followed a similar non-traditional graduate student path. But I guess what motivated you to pursue a doctoral degree at this point in your life? And what would you say to somebody that might be thinking about going back to school at a later than normal, whatever normal is these days, at a later than normal time?
Well, to discuss the second part of the question first, if you're thinking about it and you want to do it, go ahead and do it. And because I had been thinking about it for some time, and my dad had encouraged me, especially when I became an extension agent, to further my education and work on my PhD, but I always found an excuse. But when he passed away, and I remember even when he was very sick, he would be asking me, when are you going to start? What's your plan? So I would say, go ahead and do it. And my dad was my motivating factor, but I'm also very interested in logging and log trucking. And I worked with my dad in a wholesale grocery company, and it basically was a trucking company. So I've got those interests. And this study that we're working on is, in a way, it's a continuation of what I did in my master's. So it's just a perfect opportunity for me to continue my studies. So
It makes really good sense. So Eric, in the work that you do, you're conducting research. So how do you bring that research to the classroom?
I have always tried to incorporate it. I think about the research feeds the teaching, and the teaching feeds the research, and so creating that circle of knowledge. And so I was in industry for 8 years before going back to school at the age of 30 myself. And so I try to always incorporate real world situations into the student learning. And the reviews come back good. The students enjoy the work. Sometimes they get a little frustrated along the way, but they they always tend to thank you at the end, or maybe a couple of years down the road, they realize how important it was.
Yes, I've had those kind of emails where it's like, now I know why you made me do that. And so
Exactly.
it's kind of like your kids coming back, you know, when they're older saying, well, I appreciate
Yes.
you making us stay in these boundaries.
Yes.
They didn't appreciate it in the moment.
That's right.
And I think that's probably some of the things that James is dealing with right now, is trying to balance, you know, work and graduate school. You're looking to that next goal, even though right now it might be painful. So what do you think that goal might be? How do you think getting your PhD is going to change your current job? Is it just education and a sense of accomplishment, or do you
There may
see
be
your job
some
changing?
opportunities available. They're not in real fine focus right now. So I hope that there's some possibilities there. But even if I can't get another opportunity, this will help me be a more effective employee of the Extension Service.
Education is always good.
And his project is looking at real problems that we can do research for to help real people. And that's what's so important for us as a team. And I've worked in Extension in the past, and it's, you know, helping people, you know, run their business better, whether it's a logging company, a trucking company, or their 50 acres that is their retirement income.
Right.
And you know, it all boils down to people and helping them, you know, be better stewards of our forest resources.
Yeah, I agree 100%. A lot of times people look at science as being something that happens over there in the university, and we do have that basic science that answers maybe some of the more esoteric questions. But one of the things I think that we do really well as land-grant university, and maybe as College of Forest Resources, is we also keep an eye on those practical problems that we can help
Yes.
our citizens in the state of Mississippi and really across the United States and around the world with problems that they may have. And so what you've brought here is a really good example of how the research and the coursework ties together with the professional development to try to solve these real world problems, like how do we move timber from place to place and support our local economies. So I really appreciate the time that we've had here today and learning about your work and your research, and maybe we can connect again sooner than here in TV
Absolutely.
studio somewhere in the halls of Thompson. For the rest of you that are joining us here, I thank you for the time that you have invested in watching this show. I hope you've learned a little bit more about the College of Forest Resources, and I hope that you join us again. I've been your host, Leslie Berger.